started. This is my 2000 something NC700X Honda adventure bike. If you want to know more about it, you can watch some other videos, but yeah, I got it for a decent price, probably like $1,000 under MSRP. I had to replace the rear tire, and you know, pretty good looking. Do have to put more oil in the front struts, front forks, but other than that, it's alright. Yeah, just needs a little TLC, so it does have 2 cargo boxes that I don't need right now, but when I do some traveling, I'll put them back on. So let's get going. It's not too cold today. It's about 60 degrees, but when you get moving on the highway, it will get a little cool. Alright, here we go. Alright. Starts up like a dream. These are heated gloves, but today I don't need the heat on because it's not that cold, and these do a pretty good job without the heat. Alright, let's roll. Once I get up on the highway, I'll give you a little story. That is one complaint about this bike that people don't like. The horn is usually below the turn signal, but on this one the horn is above the turn signal, so when you go to try to do your turn signal, sometimes you hit the horn, which is not very substantial, so it's not really that big a deal. But it's a pretty responsive bike. All the reviews that I've listened to, the expectation is that, you know, it's a zippy bike, but it's not. Even though it is supposed to be 700, but it's I think 670 cc, which is ample for me. For what I do, I just go to work with it. I plan to take it on some longer trips later. But yeah, it's zippy enough for me. Definitely highway capable. It's a very low revving engine. Woo. But definitely very capable for what it's designed to be. So people who expect, like, you know, R6 or CBR type performance out of this, you're going to be disappointed. Now I am on the lookout for a sportier bike, but I got what I wanted out of a bike. this is plenty more than what I'm looking for. This is just right for what I'm looking for and the way I use a motorcycle. And motorcycles are kind of like, let's just say, cupcake launchers, right? And I watched some reviews before I actually got into riding as much as I have, and they're like tools. Each one has its purpose, and you have to decide how you're going to use that tool on a daily basis. And I'm not talking about, you know, a collector cupcake launcher. I'm talking about a daily driver. And people's daily drivers are different, but if all you can afford is one daily driver, you kind of want something that does a little bit of everything, right? Now, I just saw a guy go by you saw on a sport bike, and that's probably his daily driver, and depending on how far he goes, that might suit him just fine. I don't drive too far for work, and I've driven to work on a sport bike, but for me, it was just at the threshold of comfort for me, leaning over forward. And I try to get risers for it to where you sit more upright, but it was more than I wanted to spend. And that's why I got this one, because you definitely sit more upright. So this is perfect for what I like on a normal basis. I'm not looking to take this thing on the track and try to beat any speed records. I'm at the age now where I'm just in it for comfort. Now granted, a motorcycle is not necessarily your definition of comfort, but you know, it's more comfortable than others. And of course, I had the cafe bike, which I had to convert back to a more upright cruiser type stance. But I sold that.
Now I've got a bike that is perfectly made for upright riding and even stand-up riding because it's marketed as a trail motorcycle. So if you have like knobby tires, you can take it off-road. I've seen people take it off-road, but generally they had to put a little more modifications on it. Now see, I'm up to 73 miles an hour, 75 with no problems. I think I got one more gear to go. Nope, that's it. I'm not maxed out. 4,000 RPM at 77 miles an hour, and I'm doing just fine. Mighty fine. Here's an update on that warehouse project north of I-16. MSI flooring and countertops and stuff. It's a warehouse for for flooring and countertops. Hopefully you can hear my story time. Now, many of you know I was not born in the States. When I first got to the States, I was in first grade. I think I was 6 years old. I don't recall what time of year it was, but I just remember going to school in the States for the first time, and my first grade teacher was Mrs. Cook. She was a grandmotherly kind of person from what I remember. Very kind. Of course, I didn't speak very much English, but she was very kind and nurturing. She only gave me so much work to do because, well, I didn't speak much English and it was first grade after all. We weren't reading classical novels or anything like that. I didn't know my numbers, I didn't know my colors, I didn't know my letters, albeit Vietnamese letters are just a little bit different. I think there's like a couple of letters that we don't use. I don't think we have a Z and one other letter. I can't remember. Actually, at the time, I already knew how to write and I started to read single words, not complete sentences. She was more kind than the teacher I had in Vietnam. So first grade was kind of inconsequential and anticlimactic. So I move on to second grade. Ms. or Miss or Mrs. or Ms. I don't know if she was married or not, but Sizquits. I tried to look her up online, but I don't know if I spelled her name right. I just remember it was something like Sizquits or Sisquits. And she was absolutely horrible to me. I don't know if she was, well, she was mean to me from what I can remember and definitely treated other kids less bad than me. Let's just put it that way. I don't know if she was just an outright bad teacher or just bad to me, but just from what I could recall, she always took the other kids' words over mine. A few things I remember her being mean to me about was there was this girl in the class that sat next to me, and she would literally change the answers on my work when we had to trade our work to get it graded, from the person next to you. And it was clearly obvious that it was not my handwriting that was in the change of the wrong answer, but she would take the girl's word that I put the wrong answer in. I didn't speak enough English to really be able to defend myself, and I got picked on a regular basis, but she would never really step in from what I remember and say, hey, kids, cut that out. That's not appropriate. Even though she was fully aware the other kids were picking on me. Another particular time I remember her being mean to me was, now I'm not saying I'm a perfect student either, not because I was disobedient, because trust me, my mother kept me in line. I would rather have the cops called on me if I did something bad than have somebody call my mother. My mother had the fear of God in me. So I definitely did not want to disobey in school to where they had to call my mom. I remember one time I came in class and the class was pretty crowded. And the desks were in rows, parallel rows facing the front of the class. They were so close that you could actually put one hand on the right to the right of you and one hand to the left of you on a desk. So we're going back in class after lunch or recess or something, or even a bathroom break. So we're scooching along the desk, and I put my hands on the desk on both sides of me, and I just kind of push myself forward and hop forward, push myself up and hop forward. And the teacher goes, "What did you just do?" I said, "I just pushed myself forward." Now, remember, I didn't speak very good English back in those days, so I don't remember what exactly I said. But in my mind, I said, I just pushed myself forward on the desks. And the other kids were doing it too, not just me. And she says, "Well, do it 5 more times." I'm like, "What?" And she says, "If you like doing it so much, do it 5 more times." I said, "Okay." So I did it 5 more times. I didn't do it like as hard or as animated as I did it the first time, but I did it 5 times. And then she says, "Don't do it again." I was like, "Wait a minute. You just said do it 5 more times, and now you're saying don't do it again?" I didn't understand the premise of whether it was a punishment or if she just wanted me to do it to embarrass me in front of the other kids, which would be punishment, I guess. Yeah. So now to illustrate how much of a dirtbag this lady was, the norm of what I could expect out of her was like not defending me or doing extra little mean things or taking other kids' words. But one time there was something that happened. I can't remember what it was, whether I got in trouble for something or something happened at home. But the school heard about it, and the principal actually came to the class and pulled me out of the class and talked to me. And she also had the teacher with her. And the principal said something like, "Hey, this happened. Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I guess so." Either I didn't understand the ramifications of what was going on, or it really didn't really bother me. And then the principal asked the teacher, "Let me know if he needs any help," or something like that. And so at this point, in front of the principal,
The teacher was like all smiles and concerns, like, oh yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye on him and make sure. It's like, you let me know if you need anything, okay? I'm like, who is this lady? And I was like, yeah, you're not the regular teacher that's always mean to me, but okay, yeah, whatever. But I definitely did not consider her to be genuine when she showed some kind of concern for me in that situation. But yeah, I I don't think of her often. Just kind of pops in my head every once in a while when I hear stories of people being dirt bags. And yeah, I don't know what her home life was, but I hope she was miserable given the way she was treating me, so she's just spreading the misery. But yeah, I remember, just a quick story, there was a DJ in Houston, I think, when I lived there, listening to morning show, and this DJ called up happened to be his second grade teacher, I think. What is it with second grade teachers? They were just asses. But so this guy called up the second grade teacher, and she was, from the start, she sounded like just a dirtbag. She's like, hello, and hey, my name is Joe. You remember me from second grade? And I don't know how long it was since he was in school with, in her class. But she goes, yeah, I remember you. And he says, remember that time you taped me to a chair because I did something wrong and wouldn't let me call my mom, and then you taped my mouth shut? Yeah, that scared the crap out of me. And I was like, what do you think about that? And she just hung up. So, yeah, teachers back in the day, some were great, but some were just holy terrors, which is probably why the pendulum has swung so far the other way, that teachers are not allowed to do anything to discipline kids, because of douchebag teachers like that back in the day. So anyway, that's my story. That's my new to me bike, and hope you guys have a good day. Later.